Welcome to the Millennium Marriage Podcast,
where we discuss practical tools and insights into the joys and challenges of marriage.
Ain't nobody got time for that.
Welcome back to the Millennium Marriage Podcast. We are back.
Yo, we be over here acting a fool.
Like a geek. We're back. We're back. And we're here this week. We are going to be discussing forgiveness.
Dun, dun, dun.
Dun, dun, dun.
Building on what we talked about last week when we talked about trust.
Yeah.
Well, last episode. Because technically it's not last week because we're recording it at the same time.
So don't think that we wore the same outfit.
Yeah, we did not wear the same outfit.
If you're watching.
We just
no.
decided to continue the conversation.
I took the hood down.
Oops.
And as she's shooing a child away, she smacked the mic. But
yeah, no, listen, we say, hey, we're recording, don't come downstairs, and we come downstairs. You know how it goes. Yeah, go ahead, help yourself, bro. Go. Yes. No, you can't talk, just come on.
Children.
Yeah, he wants to talk. Y'all want to say hi? Say hi. Hello. Okay. Hello. All that for a hello. Okay, and some more noise. Listen, this is real life over here, okay? I don't know about y'all, but
he needs somebody to open it.
Oh, all right. Well, go ahead while I'm opening your drink. Come on, say hi to the people. Say hi to the people. Say hi to the people.
Hello.
You already said that. You're supposed to say something like,
hello, everybody watching.
Oh, watching. Oh, yeah, you noticed we got the video this time. Okay, brother. All right. You can be our co-host one day.
What you snacking on? What you snacking on?
Chips.
Did you leave them where King can get them?
I put them in the back of the
office. Okay. All right. You're so smart. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Okay. We're back, y'all. Listen, this is real life over here.
It.
Sometimes you got to incorporate the kids, let them have their moments.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Let them know they're a part of this too.
I'll get them to sign a waiver later.
So anyway, what were we saying? Oh, just building on the episode we did last week about trust, right? And this week we want to touch on how we rebuild that trust when it has been broken.
Yeah.
How do we forgive and move forward when trust has been broken? Right?
Yeah. And it could be broken in
many different
ways. You know, judgment on one half, and words can really tear people down. Just so you know, there is power in the tongue. Okay. It can
life and
death.
Can
give life and it can give death. And we got to be careful with the things that we say and you know that we allow to come out of our mouths when we're talking to everyone. You know, you never know the impact that your words are going to have on people. And it could be 20, 30 years from now and people are still, you know,
carrying the weight of those words that you spoke over them.
Yeah, absolutely.
That was good, Boo. Go
ahead, girl. Infidelity is another one. And infidelity, you touched on it the last episode. You know, it's not just sexual. It can be many different forms of infidelity. You know, I think anytime that you allow someone in that is not your significant other, in a way that really only your significant other should be let in, whether it's mentally, physically, emotionally, anything, that is definitely a form of infidelity. It might not feel like it, and you know, you might, oh well, it was just, you know, text messages, or it was just, you know, this or that, but it is
thin line.
It's still infidelity. Yeah, definitely. I know for us it was something that we dealt with, not married,
right?
But you know, prior to us getting married, but engaging in conversation that, and this is me, that I shouldn't have been engaging in, and I know that broke our trust, the trust that you had for me, not that I had for you, but and it took a long
A
time
long time.
to get back to where, you know, where we wanted to be and where we needed to be the whole time.
Mm-hmm.
But it was a terrible decision, a lapse in judgment, and it took a really long time to get
Yeah.
past it.
And a really long time, like years and years and years and years to the point where it carried over into our marriage, even when I said and we established, okay, we're going to move forward, we're going to work on this and that. And I said, yeah, I forgive you, but I hadn't really healed from it. I hadn't really dealt with it. I kind of was just like, all right, guess I got to get over it type of thing. But I really wasn't doing that in the right way. One of the things that, well, there's a couple actually I want to address. One of the things that I think kept us stagnant was that I don't think I intentionally did it, but holding it over your head after I said I forgive you, but still bringing it back up.
Right.
So it was difficult for us to move forward because anytime a disagreement came or something else came, then I will bring it back up. Now, most of the time, it was triggered by something,
Right.
by something that was happening during that time where I'm like, that looks familiar. This happened again. So, it wasn't an intentional thing, but when that trust is broken, there are so many things that can trigger. Even when you decide to move forward, you've made a decision to forgive, because forgiveness is an intentional decision. It is something that you have to work on. It's not just words. And I think a lot of times we think, oh, because I said I'm sorry and because you said I forgive you, then it should be over with.
Right.
But it's a process. It is a process, and everybody's process is differently, the way they can move through forgiveness. And for me, I had a lot of triggers. A lot of triggers, because then I felt like I wasn't good enough. And then it messed with my confidence. And then there was just it's a sorry, I'm looking for a snowball effect.
Yeah.
Where it could be something small in the beginning, but the more you sit and stew on it, then it like builds up and affects other areas of your life. So that was the one thing. The other thing that I struggled with was accountability. Like I felt like you weren't taking accountability.
Right.
Even though it was like, yes, this happened. It was like before when you talked about fully being vulnerable to me.
No, absolutely.
Because you weren't fully vulnerable, I knew there was still something there. And all I wanted was for you to say A, B, and C. I wanted details. Women, y'all know how we are.
They do.
We want details. I don't want just this happened and, now we're moving forward.
Right.
No. I want to know what happened. I want to know when it happened. I want to know why it happened so we can prevent it from happening in the future. Right? Sometimes we get a little too deep with that stuff because we really don't want to know everything. But the reality is, like, I needed to have a full understanding of what happened and what the breakdown was in order for me to start trusting again.
Right.
Because otherwise it just always felt like, well, I thought everything was good then, but it wasn't. So apparently I don't really know what's good and what's not.
Right.
And excuse our dog in the background if you can hear him barking.
Man,
everybody want to interrupt us today. What's happening? Anyway, so that was really big. So and I'm saying this to everyone as a couple, right? The person who is the offender, I guess you would say, has to be willing to be straightforward and honest and take accountability, full accountability for what happened. And then the person who was offended against has to be willing to, I don't know. I don't really know how to say it, but I guess willing to give the person an opportunity to prove themselves again.
Right. Yeah.
Without always holding something over their head or assuming something's wrong. And that's so much easier said than done, because the hurt is real, the pain is real, the fear of it happening again is real. But if you choose to move forward in the relationship and move forward from whatever that thing was, and again, it's not always infidelity.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's just, the way you have dishonored each other in your words, or not created that safe space like we talked about last time. There's so many different ways, but it's difficult. But if you commit to it, if both of you
Yeah.
commit to it, it's worth it.
No, absolutely.
It's so worth it.
I think for in our situation, the damage was done, but in my mind, holding back, like she like you wanted the details and like what happened and everything. And in my mind, that wall is up and I don't want to be vulnerable. One, two, I don't want to hurt you more.
Mm-hmm.
And that was my mind was always like, no, because I don't want you to be hurt even more than I've already hurt you.
Mm-hmm.
But in reality,
That
the
was hurting
damage
me
was
more.
already done.
Mm-hmm.
It was done. And this thing prolonged for longer than what it needed to
Yeah.
because of me still trying to protect your heart from a mistake that I made, and it's like almost compounding on top
Mhm.
of the mistake because I was trying to do that. So me thinking that I'm protecting you in turn was doing the opposite.
Yeah.
It was actually hurting you more. And once I can't even remember if like you put that into words or it just like we were just talking and it's like, whatever it was, the light turned on and it's like we gotta get,
Yeah. Can I jump in there?
Yeah.
So, man, I lost my train of thought. There was something you said but in regards to prolonging it, when you said like, you're thinking you're protecting me, but it's really hurting me more because women, we have this thing called intuition, right? And sometimes we have this thing called evidence, right? So for me, it was more of like, okay, we acknowledge this happened, but you're only giving me part of it. There's that vulnerability, right? And it was the fact that I knew there was more to it and you wouldn't release. So like we talked about in the last one, where it's like, if I can't bring you to small things, how am I going to bring you to big things? And I felt like you want to give me the opportunity to bring me to big things. So it was like, you don't trust me.
Yeah.
You don't trust me with your heart. You don't trust me to be able to forgive you. You don't trust me as a woman to be able to make a decision on my own, whether or not I want to continue in this. But you're trying to make the decision for me by still hiding something from me.
Right.
So in turn, what I decided to do was find something that I wasn't going to tell him. It was tit for tat.
Right.
And it wasn't even that deep. But I was like, okay, you want to keep something from me? I'm going to keep something from you. And it was stupid. Like, it wasn't even anything that needed to be kept, but I made it something that needed to be kept. And in turn, now I created even more distance between us because now it's just revenge. I'm doing it because one day you're going to find out that I was holding this from you the way you're holding that from me. And it's going to hurt you the way you hurt me.
Right.
And it was such a vicious cycle.
It's toxic.
Very toxic.
It's a toxic mindset.
Yeah.
On both ends.
Yeah.
It's just not healthy.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it was freeing once.
Well, hold on. Before you go into that. So when we talk about it's a process, this happened prior to us being married. We were young. This was like the first couple years of us dating, first few years or something. So we dated for 9 years before we got married.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's just say it was 3 years into our relationship, maybe 4, something like that. And then 5 years after that, we ended up getting married. The effects of this carried into our marriage. Right?
Yep.
We had made strides where we trusted each other, but that was always lingering.
Yeah.
Because there was no resolution. There was no full accountability. So it was like, well, it could happen again because we really haven't established what really happened, why it happened, and all that.
Mhm.
Years into our marriage, right? At least a few years into our marriage. So now at this point, it was 5 years from the time it happened before we got married.
Right.
Then like what, 3-4 years into our marriage. So that's
Yeah.
almost 10 years.
Yeah.
It wasn't that long,
Absolutely.
but
Right.
like 8 years, something like that.
Yeah.
That this weight we carried. And at this point, I mean, we felt like we were in a good space. We're working
Right.
through some things, but
Well,
probably
you can be in a good space
Mhm.
and still be dealing with
yeah.
this type of stuff.
Yeah.
You know, especially if you decide to move forward.
Right. But see, here's what happens. The enemy knows where those blind spots, those triggers are,
Mhm.
right? And every time we felt like we were like, yes, this is where we need to be, something from that would creep in.
Mhm.
Whether it was like something happened and it triggered something in me, or you said something, or I said something, and
Mhm.
it may not have even been that situation. It can be something else, and it makes us think about that.
Right.
And it would always creep in every time we felt like we were in a good place
Mhm.
because we never really dealt with it.
Right.
So it was years later, and one day, I don't know what happened. I don't remember.
Mhm.
All I remember is that I was like, I'm tired. Like, I'm tired of holding on to the thing that I said that I was going to keep from him.
Mhm.
And again, it was years ago. I didn't even think about it anymore, but I still felt the weight of that
Mhm.
because I felt like there was something that was in between us. There was something that I was keeping.
Right.
And one night I was just like, listen, I need you to know that this happened. And I really only didn't tell you. Like, it's not a big deal. I just didn't tell you because I was being spiteful, because there's stuff that you still haven't told me
Mhm.
and you didn't take accountability. And that's what has me stuck. So here you go. Now I'm telling you, I'm sorry. I hope it didn't hurt you too bad
Mhm.
that I kept this from you, but I'm tired.
Yeah.
I'm tired. Like, I don't want to even think about this anymore. I
Mhm.
don't want it. I don't want to feel like I'm keeping something from you because we are best friends. Like,
Right.
that's not who we are.
Mhm.
And I was just like, I'm tired.
Mhm.
And I think you sat in it for a while. And the next day you were at work
Mhm.
and I got a text from him, a long text of him releasing and acknowledging what had happened, 10,
Yeah.
8, however many years
Yeah.
ago. That freed both of us.
Mhm.
It was like, and I don't know what you were feeling
Mhm.
when you did that, like what you were thinking, how you were thinking I was going to respond.
Right.
Probably like flip out,
Yeah.
like it took you all this time, you know
Right,
what I
right, right.
mean? But I was at such peace.
Mhm.
Like, it literally gave me joy to hear him or see him put into words, taking responsibility, being
Right.
completely vulnerable, and letting me know everything that a lot of it I already knew.
Right.
But it was just the fact that you were able to be vulnerable with me again.
Mhm.
And that is what freed us, I believe.
So that was it was a big step, right? But it wasn't it wasn't what it should have been, right? I should this opening and me freeing all of this and getting this out should have been done in person. And I took the tech. Sometimes I can be more vocal
Mm-hmm.
when it's through a text message than when it's in person,
Mm-hmm.
because in person I can see the reaction, I can see the hurt, I can see the pain, and then it, you know, it might not all come out. It might stop, right? Because I see it, I see the impact it's having, and then I might shut it down.
Mm.
Where in a text message, I can just get it all out, send it, and
Mm-hmm.
like be done with it.
Never thought about it that way.
But it took, your response was, you know, thank you. And I'm paraphrasing, but in a way, thank you for being open. Is it okay if we talk about it tonight? And that's when it was even more freeing because we laid there late into the night, because if you know my wife, she likes to have conversations at 2 a.m.
That I
But
do.
yes,
Sorry.
but it happened, and it was so much, it was even more freeing, and it brought us so much closer.
Oh my goodness.
And ever since that moment, we've continued to just build the trust and build the trust and
Rebuild,
build
yeah.
the trust, and we've rebuilt it to where we are currently, which I think is in a really good place. And again, there's still room to build. We're never not building that trust. So it was very freeing. It was absolutely freeing.
Yeah. And I think it's important to note, when we were able to be more free about it and really grow from it is when we both were in a space to put in the full effort.
Right.
Like, one person can't be the only one looking to rebuild that trust. Like if you offended and the person says, I forgive you, and they're trying to rebuild it, but you continue the same behaviors that you did to offend that person, it's not going to work.
Yeah.
And the same the other way around. If you're the person who was offended, you can't say, I forgive you, but then every 5 minutes we're throwing it in their face.
Right.
And that's not to say it's not a process, and it's going to take some time, but you have to be intentional about being mindful of your words and not being vindictive and throwing those daggers just to hurt them the way they hurt you, which again, we had to learn the hard way.
Yeah, it can happen. It can definitely happen.
Yeah. I think when we talk about forgiveness, and how difficult it is to forgive in a relationship when you've been hurt or wronged, we really have to look to Jesus. We have to, because there is no greater example of forgiveness.
No.
There isn't. And every single day, like, okay, we get into situations in our relationship and, we have to forgive each other for words that are said or for situations that happen periodically. Listen, every single day of our lives that we wake up to see another day, we fall short and we sin against God.
Yeah.
And guess what? Every single day, he gives us breath to do it again.
Yeah.
And to repent and try to do better.
Yeah.
We're humans. We're not going to get it perfect. But he chooses to forgive us. He chose to send his son to the cross to die for our sins. Every single day, we're forgiven. So,
and even his son on the cross,
like what?
It says, forgive them, for they not know what they do.
What they do.
Goodness gracious.
Like, you're killing me, but I'm asking my Father to forgive you anyway. In the midst of you sticking a dagger in my side, in the midst of you whipping me, in the midst of all of these things, I'm still going to God on your behalf and asking him to forgive you.
So who are we?
Who are we
to not forgive and to hold on to these things that, to be honest, are so minuscule? They're so small in the grand picture.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's
that's not to minimize.
I absolutely not. I was just about to say, this is not to minimize anybody's hurt, because there still needs to be conversations had and be able to move past it and begin to build that trust again.
Yeah.
But when we say we forgive, you need to forgive. You need to allow it to go, because if you let it have this strong hold on you, you're not gonna, the relationship's not gonna grow. It's not gonna go anywhere. It's gonna be stagnant. It's gonna be in the mud.
Yeah.
And when you hold on to those things, you have to release it. And it could be releasing it to God and just, praying about it and just, continue to help me get past this. And but when we put those words out there and we say that we forgive someone, we got to forgive. It has to be gone.
And again, talking about the process, saying you forgive and trying to do it like just in your own strength and trying to figure it out usually doesn't work. Let's be clear. Okay. So, in addition to going to God and praying about it and getting in the word and finding the tools that you need for your life to move forward, because you mentioned a stronghold.
Mm-hmm.
That's exactly what it is. Like, even in our situation, like
Yeah.
that thing had us on lock for almost a decade
Right.
for something that could have been handled
Yeah.
back then. But because we didn't fully release and forgive and open, and be vulnerable, it had a stronghold on us. So sometimes I think about, like, man, how much further would we have been today? Not that I would change anything,
Right. Not at
because
all.
it made us who we are. It's
Yeah.
been a beautiful disaster.
Mhm. Yeah.
And brought us
And
to this point.
and we do know. We know that there was a reason why that time had to be spent,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because what if we try to have the conversation 8 years earlier? We may not have been mature enough to handle it the way that we handled
Amen.
it. You know what I
Wasn't. Let's
mean?
just say we weren't.
We weren't.
Mm-mm, I wasn't.
So when it comes to that time, I don't want to look at it like in that manner. Like, man, if it would have think about how far we would be. I
Mhm.
want to look at it like, thank God for that time,
Absolutely.
because without that time, we might not even be here because of our maturity level, or because of the situations that we may have been in, or our minds were in that time, in that season of our lives.
Yeah.
So God gave us that 8, it just happened to be 8 years. It doesn't always happen like this,
Right.
but he knew that time was needed, because he knew all along there's a seed in us that
Mm.
he wants to grow, right? See how that works? So
Woo!
the harvest needed to take the 8 years for that to all grow and to get us to where we are and where we're growing to now.
Boy.
So
Yo. That's a word for somebody.
sometimes.
Okay? Because sometimes the seed got to be planted and you just got to let it. And in that time, we have to acknowledge what it is that God's trying to show us in that time.
Right.
What is it that, Lord, that I'm supposed to learn through this? Because this is hard and I hate it and I just want you to bring me out of it. But at the same time, I know that means there's something in it for me.
Mm-hmm.
So what is it that you're trying to teach me? What is it that you're trying to teach us? How is it that you want me to grow as a person, as your child,
Right.
In my purpose?
And individually.
Yeah.
In you, yourself,
Mm-hmm.
because that was even bigger for us.
Yeah.
Because we grew individually and
Spiritually.
spiritually, and it got us to that point.
Yeah. Yeah.
And sometimes we're so quick to where, if this is the offense, we got the offense here, and the offense within our relationship, it's a big thing, but within what we have, it was a small thing, right? But sometimes we allow this small thing to dictate this big love and relationship that we have. So we were able to move forward. Granted, it was still there, but we were able to still see the beauty in each other,
Yeah.
the love that we have for each other, the
Mhm.
fact that regardless of this thing, we still want to be together.
Mhm.
So we were able to move forward, where some people, they want to just stop right there,
Mhm.
and it's over with. They don't want to move forward. I think sometimes we have to make sure that we see the big picture, the whole
Mhm.
relationship,
Yeah.
and where everything is, and making sure that we're not making rash decisions.
Yeah.
And
I think that also depends on where you are in your relationship.
Mhm.
It's one thing if you're just dating and you see all
Oh,
these
yeah.
red flags from somebody and you're like, I'm get them out.
Yes.
Like,
Yes.
you know what I mean? Because sometimes God will show you things about the
Mhm.
person that you're with or dating or whatever, you know, to just
Yeah.
let you know this ain't it.
Yeah,
You know?
absolutely.
When you're in a marriage, it's a little deeper than that. I mean, I would
Mhm.
hope that as you were in relationship prior to getting married, some of those things that you saw, you are working through.
Right.
But again, you both have to be invested in working through them and not
Mhm.
just accepting what doesn't work.
Yeah.
Right. So real quick before we go, I want to
Mhm.
go back to what I was saying about, you know, sometimes you need that additional push, right? Like, so you say, I forgive you. You say, you know, I'm taking accountability, and you
Mhm.
both decide to move forward. You're praying about it. You're asking God what He wants you to learn through it. You're working on yourselves as individuals so that you work on your relationship. Sometimes you have to have a third party involved in it.
Mhm.
Sometimes you have to go to counseling.
Mhm.
Sometimes you have to go to individual counseling to really work through the pain or the trauma that this event or breach of trust or something else in your past has caused that made this event such a big um what's the word I'm looking for, issue, but that's not the
Mhm.
word I'm looking for, but
Right.
whatever. um and then sometimes you need to go to couples counseling, coaching, therapy, whatever your title is for it. People get a little technical
Mhm.
nowadays, but we need to understand that sometimes we need that non-biased third party to be able to not tell us how to fix it,
No.
not tell us what to do and how to move forward in our relationship, but to mediate and be able to help us see the other person's perspective,
Yeah.
to give us tools to work through the hurt, to give us tools to understand what it means to forgive, and move forward. I think, especially in our communities, in the Black community, in the Hispanic community, therapy, counseling has been over the years. I think it's much more prevalent now, but
Mhm.
over the years was looked down on.
Yeah.
Like, you just pray about it, it's going to disappear.
Yeah.
No. Yes, we pray about it. Yes, we release it to God, but that doesn't mean that God doesn't have steps for us to take to move through whatever it is we need to move through.
Mhm.
Okay. So we can't just throw everything on God and say, here, you fix it.
Yeah.
It doesn't work like that.
Mm-mm.
And that's with anything in life. We want to ask Him for everything, but are we doing our due diligence and making sure we're doing everything we were supposed to do to get the outcome that we're looking for? So I just wanted to mention that that's really important.
Yeah.
I think, again, today in 2022, many more people are open to counseling, and therapy and different, forms of just working through things. But it's still difficult.
Yeah.
It's difficult to admit that, you need help individually, as a couple, whatever, because in society, social media, everybody want to put this picture out there that everything is perfect, everything is glorious. I'm,
Mhm.
living the life of my dreams, and then go home and cry themselves to sleep at night.
Yeah.
And I say themselves, listen, we've been there.
Mhm.
We've been there. Like, I've dealt with depression. I've dealt with, the hurt of that whole situation, and, not knowing if we're going to make it, and just being overwhelmed and consumed by things of this world, and not knowing how to deal with them, and then walk out the door and put a smile on my face like
Mhm.
everything is great.
Yeah.
You know? But we really have to be mindful that for our own mental health, for our own physical health, for the health of our relationship, we have to acknowledge when it's necessary
Yeah.
to get additional help outside of just having the conversations with the two of us.
Mhm.
So that may mean something different for each and every couple or person that's listening to this podcast. But, we just want you to consider that that may be something that needs to be done.
Right.
So, good.
Great.
With that said, we appreciate you guys spending the time with us today,
Mhm.
and allowing us to really be vulnerable and talk
Yeah.
through some of these things. I was talking to a friend the other day, and we talked about how, the reason that we do this podcast, the reason that we have this ministry, the reason that we are trying to build a community for couples is because we didn't really have it.
Mhm.
So we had to learn a lot of these things the hard way. And some things you still will, no matter what anybody tells
Yeah.
you. But it's just good to have community. And we feel like you all have become a part of our community.
Mhm.
Whether we know you or not, we've had people stop us and just tell us that us sharing our hearts about marriage and about the things that we've been through has been a blessing. So we just want you guys to know you've been a blessing to us too.
Yeah.
Thank you for allowing us the opportunity to share these moments and our life lessons and
Mhm.
the things that we've gone through and are growing through and
Yeah.
are striving for. We just thank you all. We appreciate you, and we hope that you're getting just as much out of these episodes.
I hope so.
So until next time, continue to invest in each other for a marriage that lasts a lifetime. Love you guys.
Peace out.
If you enjoyed our podcast, please subscribe and share. Keep up with us on social media at Millennium Marriage and visit our website at millenniummarriage.com.